What if I told you there's a secret blueprint for making things happen? Like a universal formula for taking any big idea you have and making it real? Well, it turns out there is one. And the clues are hiding in the most unexpected places, from the boardrooms of top executives to the command line of a computer programmer, and yeah, even in the pages of a 17th century magic book. Okay, so here's how we're going to break this down. We're going to start with something called the sandwich problem. Sounds simple, right? Then we'll get into the three key steps. First, knowing your world. Second, defining your MVP, or your smallest possible action. And third, creating a feedback loop so you can learn and adapt. By the end, you'll see how this one blueprint connects everything. All right, let's kick things off with the core challenge of just getting things done. And we can see it perfectly through the lens of a simple peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I mean, really think about that for a second. If you ask a person to do it, it's easy, no problem. But what happens when you ask a machine? This question right here, it just blows open this massive gap between our own intuition and the kind of explicit, perfect instructions you need to make anything, literally anything, actually happen. Programmer Chris Pine just nailed this frustration when he said, computers are way dumber than I was prepared for. And it really gets to the heart of the problem. Systems don't have common sense. They can't fill in the blanks like we can. You have to spell out every single detail. And that, right there, is why execution is so much harder than it looks. So for a person, these 4 steps, that's all you need. But for a computer? Oh man. You'd have to define locate bread, you'd have to specify how to open a cabinet, what to do if there's a twist tie, how to hold a knife. The list of tiny little instructions becomes absolutely ridiculous. And that is the fundamental problem of execution. How do you translate a simple goal into a series of precise actions? And that brings us perfectly to the very first step in our blueprint. Before you can even start giving instructions, you have to deeply, truly understand the environment you're in. You gotta know the rules of the game. The management genius Peter Drucker made this point so brilliantly. He said that for an executive, the inside reality of their company, the meetings, the politics, the gossip, that's all a distraction. The true reality is always outside, with the customer in the market. A really effective leader has to force themselves to see that outside world clearly. Now, for a wild comparison, stick with me here. A 17th century magic book. It describes ceremonial magic not as just some vague wish, but as a physiological experiment. The whole process is grounded in concrete sensory inputs, the specific things you see, the sounds you make, the smells. It's just another way of saying the exact same thing. Your work has to be grounded in the tangible reality of your world, not just an idea floating around in your head. So here's the bottom line. It doesn't matter if you're an executive trying to understand a market, a programmer figuring out a computer's limits, or even a magician setting up a ritual. The first principle is always the same. You have to know your world. Okay, so once you understand your world, what's next? The next step is to take your huge vision and break it down into the smallest possible piece that still actually provides some value. And in the startup world, they have a great name for this. It's called the minimum viable product, or MVP. And the whole point isn't to build your entire dream project all at once. No way. The goal is to learn. It's about building the smallest possible thing that solves a real problem for someone, just so you can see if you're even pointed in the right direction. And get this idea is timeless. On one hand, you have a startup founder, and they're scoping their MVP down to just the absolute must-have features. And on the other, you have our 17th century grimoire describing spirits with these incredibly specific jobs. You wouldn't summon Asmodee to teach you public speaking. He's the math and astronomy guy. You'd call on Ronave for rhetoric. It's the exact same principle. Isolate the specific function you need. Don't try to boil the ocean. This is the absolute essence of programming. As Chris Pine puts it, you don't just build a program. You break the problem down, and then you break it down again, and you keep going until you have a set of simple, basic commands the computer already gets. That's how you conquer complexity. So, you know your world, and you've defined a small, actionable step. But here's the thing. Execution isn't a one-and-done event. It's a process. And that brings us to the final piece of the blueprint, the part that makes it all work, the feedback loop. Modern startups absolutely live and die by this cycle. You build your small MVP, you put it out there, and you measure what happens. What are users actually doing? What are they saying? Then, and this is the crucial part, you learn from that feedback and you use it to refine your idea. And then you do it all over again. And this is not just some trendy startup thing. The modern mantra is build, measure, learn. But guess what? Decades ago, Peter Drucker was giving executives the same advice. He said you have to build feedback into every decision to test expectations against actual events. It's the exact same idea. Don't just assume you're right. Test it, learn from it, and adapt. I love this quote. It just perfectly captures the spirit of this whole feedback loop idea. A successful project isn't a static blueprint like for a bridge. It's a living thing. You plant a seed, that's your MVP, and then you tend to it, you let it grow and evolve based on what's actually happening in the real world. Okay, so we've looked at programming, we've looked at executive management, startups, and yeah, even magic. Now it's time to put all the pieces together and reveal the universal blueprint that's been hiding in plain sight this whole time. And here it is. Just look at how these totally different fields all map perfectly to the same 3 steps. The programmer learns the computer's rules, breaks tasks down, and runs a code test debug loop. The executive focuses on the market, defines a specific contribution, and tests decisions against reality. The founder monitors the market, defines an MVP, and uses the build, measure, learn loop. Even the magician grounds their work in reality, invokes a specific power, and then observes the results. It is all the same pattern. So, the ultimate principle here, the one thing to take away from all of this is simple. Structure beats intention. Having a good idea or a ton of willpower just isn't enough. A disciplined, structured process for execution will always win. So, why does this actually matter for you? Well, because we all fall into this trap, right? We get stuck in learning mode. We take endless courses, read all the books, we plan forever, but we never actually produce anything. We learn stuff without ever testing if anyone in the real world even wants it. This blueprint is the antidote to that. It's a machine for turning learning into doing. So I'm going to leave you with this question. Forget about your grand 10-year plan for just a moment. You have the blueprint now. So what is the smallest, most concrete thing you can build or create or do right now to test your idea in the real world? What is your MVP?